Now, the main problem with people understanding the word dry cleaning is that they assume that the word dry refers to a noun instead of a verb. Let me explain. Way back in the day, there was a man by the name of Jean-Baptiste Joly who lived in France. This man is considered to be the father of modern dry cleaning, and the reason is because one night he was sitting at his dining room table doing some work probably, and he spilled kerosene on the tablecloth in front of him that had a stain on it. He said, "Oh, that's a bummer. I guess I'll clean that up later." And so he left, and when he came back, he noticed that the kerosene had dried and the stain that was on the tablecloth had kind of dried up and gone away with the kerosene. And so, voila, modern dry cleaning is born. This isn't a confirmed story. This is mainly just a legend, but this is how most people refer to the birth of modern dry cleaning. So in my opinion, the reason he referred to it as dry cleaning was because the cloth was cleaned as the solvent was drying off of the clothes. So as it dried, it got clean. Hence, dry cleaning. So what actually happens to your clothes when they are dry cleaned? Well, let's talk about it. So first off, you take your clothes to the dry cleaner. They're checked in. You give them to the person behind the counter. You describe everything that's wrong with the clothes. They've got a stain on the pocket. There's a wine spill on the cuff, something. There's problems with them, and you make sure that you describe everything in detail to the person behind the counter so that they can tag it and they know what to do. Something that workers hate is when there are no labels on the clothes so that they know how to treat the clothes and how to take care of them correctly. All of those little symbols and washing icons are there for a reason, so don't forget the labels. Fun fact, labels were first invented and used in Europe in the 1950s and then later throughout the rest of the world in the 1960s, and the reason is because all of these cleaners were having people return their clothes and ask for a refund because the clothes were damaged due to the cleaning process. So they all said, you know what? Let's just make sure everybody knows how to wash the clothes so that we don't have to keep paying out all these damage fees. Also, anything that could come off during the washing process is removed beforehand. So buttons that could be dissolved or chains or anything like that could come off during the washing process is removed before it's thrown into the machine. Then that person will take those clothes and do what's called pre-spotting, where they check all over the clothes, find all those spots that you mentioned, and take a solvent and kind of pre-soak them. Just work that solvent into the fabric, give it a little scrub, and make sure that those things are pre-treated and they've been hit with a solvent and had a little bit of time to soak in and kind of really work out those materials and those stains that are kind of corrupting the fabric. Now at this point you might be thinking to yourself, what kind of clothes and materials should actually be dry cleaned? Because I know I've heard that a lot of clothes should not be cleaned with water, and which ones actually are those? I'm so glad you asked. Things that are better off dry cleaned would include wool, silk, leather, velvet, suit jackets, suede, sheepskin, fur coats, and linens. These materials are all damaged if water is used in the cleaning process. Now, once the materials have been pre-spotted and pre-treated, into the machine they go, which impressively can hold up to 50 pounds of dry clothes, which is a lot. So they throw all those clothes into the machine, and then that machine starts to wash them. Now this machine is basically just a giant washing machine, but it's a closed system so that any of the solvent and material that has gone into there and is used to wash the clothes, none of that will escape or evaporate into the atmosphere. It's all recaptured by the machine so that it can be used for later washes. But more importantly, these solvents that the dry cleaners are using are not super eco-friendly, and if they get into the atmosphere they can cause bad things like cancer or Parkinson's, or just screw up the atmosphere in general and cause more pollutants. So we don't want them getting out. So the machine starts to wash, spinning those clothes, kind of gently dropping and rubbing them against the baffles in the cylinder as it spins to kind of scrub out any hard stains or anything in there that is sticking to the fabric. The solvent is added continuously throughout the entire cycle to kind of ensure that the solvent is evenly distributed across all of the clothes and that none of the material is missed. So as the clothes are being washed in this machine, there are filters that are filtering out the dirt. So the solvent is going into the machine, washed with the clothes, and then pulled out back into the machine, and all of the dirt and Other things are filtered out, and then that solvent is purified so that it can be used again in later washes or even in the same wash in some cases. 99.9% of all of the solvent that is used in the cleaning process will have been evaporated and pulled out of those clothes at the end of the cleaning cycle. The temperature in those machines is very strictly controlled so that none of the clothes are damaged during the cleaning process. Now let's talk a little bit about what solvents are actually used in this process. The most commonly used solvent in today's world is something called perchloroethylene, which was discovered by Michael Faraday in the early 20th century. It's pretty cool because Michael Faraday invented a lot of other cool things too. He was a cool guy. Perchloroethylene is also known as perch for short. Some other common alternatives to perchloroethylene are trichloroethylene and petroleum spirits. Now, perch is the most commonly used one, and it's widely used across the whole world, but it's not very popular because of some aforementioned things that can go wrong with it. Things like it can cause cancer, and if it gets into the atmosphere, it can be pretty damaging. And that's the reason it has to be inside of a closed system. So people are experimenting with some new forms of solvent that can be used to dry clean clothes. And the two most popular ones right now are liquid CO2 and liquid silicone. Some things that have been used in the past to dry clean clothes include kerosene, turpentine, benzene, gasoline, and petroleum. So now that the clothes have finished being gently dropped and pounded in the washing machine, there's some nice warm air that goes through there and evaporates all of that solvent. The machine recaptures it, distills it for later use, and then the clothes are taken out. The last steps of the process are the clothes are put into something called a form finisher, which is important for maintaining the shape and kind of overall structure of the clothes. If you have a suit jacket, you can put them in a form finisher to make sure that the shoulders stay rigid or the collar on a collared shirt stays nice and crisp. After that, the clothes are ironed by hand and then put into plastic bags to be picked up, ready to go, ready for you to wear on your next big day. Dry cleaning is pretty incredible because it can get out pretty much any stain, including coffee, wine, paint, iodine. There's basically no stain that is too tough for the dry cleaners to get out. So the next time you're in a pickle with your wine-stained suit jacket, you know who to call.